Hello and welcome to Almost 30.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's Lindsay and Krista. Thanks for being here. Thanks for choosing us. We know it's a choice,
We know it's a choice
and we're
to be
thankful.
here.
We're thankful. We're
We choose you
thankful.
too.
Yeah, we choose you.
We choose you all. It was beautiful. I was in Italy recently and there was a lot of Almost 30 family and it
The
was
best.
just they became my actual friends. It was so
It
much
always
fun.
happens.
Literally.
It always happens.
It was
What
like
was what was the initial like? Did they come up to you, or what was the vibe?
so I was at a retreat and it was just so lovely. So we were in circle and there was someone that spoke a T and she spoke and she was like, she's fucking dope. Like she's from London and she just has an accent and she was just fucking regal. I'm like, she's dope. I want to be her friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so after I was like, yo, like just said hi. And she's like, honestly, I'm like a little overwhelmed. She's like, I've listened to you guys for like the whole time.
Oh my
She
god.
was like, "I kind of need a moment." Like, I'm, like, a little overwhelmed that you're actually here and you're actually talking to me, like, it was just so sweet. But then eventually we just
Oh,
became homies, like, we're super cool. And then I was chilling in the grass at another point in the retreat, and someone came a little late, and they came up to me, they're like, "Yo, what's up?" They're like, "I'm Jade. I'm here because of you." And it was me and her
no
became, like,
way.
we were, like it was just
Oh,
the best. And there was other people too, but it was just, like it was just nice. Like, it's and
I
it was
know.
actually very nice when people would say like, "Hey, I know you were not," just because sometimes there's like a gray area where you're like, I'm in a space where it's normal. A lot of people know other people. There's like a
Sure.
very small community of whatever we're in. And so it's actually nice when people say if they know you or not, because then you're like, do you know that I don't know.
Totally. Completely. Completely.
I'm just like, okay, cool or not. You know, I don't know. I don't know what
Have
it
you
is.
have you seen me before?
Yeah, honestly, I'm just like, have like, because it's also like there's over 500 episodes. Like, I don't know what part of me you know.
A
Like,
100%.
literally listen to us 5 years ago and
Yeah.
that's a whole different experience of me.
100%.
What side of me do you know? Do you know the side that, like,
Was it like
wanted to move to Austin?
2018,
Yeah, literally.
where I'm like talking about
Where
like
I was keto,
yeah.
where I was, like, plant-based keto for 2 weeks.
I was I was going to my second dress fitting and I was sitting at a cafe with my friend Maddie, and it was like right across the street. We were just kind of hanging afterwards, and this girl kept kind of looking at me, and sometimes you can sense. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't really know. And I perceived at the time to be sitting with her parents, which she was, and we were getting up to kind of leave, and she's like, "Hi, are you Lindsay?" And I was like, "Yes, hi." She's like, "Oh my god." She's like, "I manifested this. Like,
Mm.
I've been listening to the show for so long." I was like, "Oh my god." I was like, "I'm so happy to meet you." And she was just so lovely and sweet. And I was like, actually, I was like, because I haven't been really like talking about it on IG or anything, or really on here too much. But I was like, I tried on my wedding dress across the street. She's like, no way. She's like, me too. She's like, I'm about to pick up my dress. I'm getting married next week. So we got our dresses at the same place,
What?
and we're like following each other now. And I'm like, please send me pictures like when you get
Oh,
married. She's from Philly. And her
wow.
parents were, like, literally at the table, like, kinda like this, like, with their hands over their head.
Why?
I think they were embarrassed that their daughter was, like, freaking out about it's kinda like the reverse.
Oh,
Like,
I would think parents would be like, "Hey, this is my daughter."
I mean, they were sweet. They were just like, "Hi,"
Yeah.
whatever. But it was so cute. It's funny, I don't think every show or whatever has, like, people who are so comfortable coming up to them,
Yeah.
and I appreciate it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I saw a girl the other day in Erewhon, she's like, and then we remembered each other. I was like, "Oh, I saw you before." She's like, "I saw you here." And I was like, "You're doing too much." I was like, "I think she wants to leave." 'Cause
Oh,
I
you
just
are doing too much.
fucking like I'm like, "Oh, what's up with you?" Like, I just like
You're like, "How's your mom?"
there
She's
was
like,
one
"What?"
time on a street where the girl was literally like, I have to
Mhm.
go." And I was like, "Oh,
I know,
I don't need to,
literally.
like, give you everything that I have because you listened to the
You're like,
podcast."
"I have extra element sticks
On
in my purse."
literally. I was like, "Do you want, like, secret sponsor codes?"
It's the best, so always say hi. It
So
makes us
before this
happy.
interview, yeah, if you guys wanna hear more stories about us being
Yeah,
recognized,
truly, we're
just keep
famous.
listening.
We're
It's
famous.
yeah. We'll never do that again. But basically,
I
we just
like
love
it.
you
No,
guys.
no, no, that was the point. I
Yeah,
mean, I think it's so sweet.
we love you guys. So we did this episode with Ash in
Mhm.
Miami, Florida, in a fucking dump.
Yeah, to dump.
A dump, an expensive dump.
Oh, man. Well,
Rhymes with no ho.
this is
No ho schmouse.
th this is what I think of Miami. I think that and I pray that Miami has a bit of renaissance
Oh,
because I think it's stuck. I think the energy is stuck in Miami, no disrespect. I like the area of Miami, but there's an energy there that I'm like, "I think you're stuck."
mm.
Do you agree?
I feel like it was raining a lot that trip, so it felt funky. I love it. I feel like the decor is insane. The places are insane. There's a lot of color. I feel like it
I think
is.
most places are, like, kinda wacky-do with decor.
Yeah, it's very like
Tell me where to go because 'cause I'm like,
experiential. Yeah,
"Okay."
maybe I'm like drunk, but I don't know. I feel like it has. You know what needs a renaissance? Vegas. I know I'm not gonna go on this fucking journey again, but Vegas.
Of course
I'm
Vegas
like
needs a
everything's
renaissance.
purple and silver,
I know.
and there's not one like where's the peaceful spot? I'm going to Vegas for the wrong reasons, obviously. Like,
Yeah, 0.
where's like the
0.
beautiful white spa-like
I just want there to
experience?
be a proper in every city that I go
100%
to.
same. I know
There should be a proper
that's
in
why I haven't.
Miami.
Yes.
There
Oh
should be a
my
proper in
god. In
Vegas,
Hawaii. That's why I haven't gone
in
to Hawaii
Hawaii.
because I haven't found a place that I'd want to stay that I'm like, "Oh, this feels unique, experiential,
Peaceful.
peaceful, and beautiful."
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about the proper hotel. There's one here in Santa Monica, there's one in Austin. Yeah, it's definitely a vibe. So we were in Miami. Where we stayed was not the vibe, it was a little haunted. We kinda had to
Oh yeah.
and we had to, like, resituate the room because it was, like, very
It just
bizarre.
just looks bad.
Yeah, so if you're watching this interview on video, excuse.
Yeah, excuse. It just like it looks like we were in like these piece of shit chairs. Just like
Ash was like, "What am I sitting on?"
yeah,
We
she
were
was
like,
like,
"So
"Can I
sorry."
request another?" So we had to get her like another chair. Yeah.
Oh, Ash is the best though. She traveled to Miami, to sit with us and spend an afternoon into evening. We had such a good time,
Yeah.
and we drop in.
We drop in.
We drop in.
It feels like friends talking. We talk a lot about the healing space. We talk about social media. We talk about ancestral healing. We really go there in this conversation. And because we are friends, it feels like super windy and exploratory. But I feel like we can be really honest together. And I really, really appreciate that about Ash.
Yes, very much so. Ash Johns, if you don't know her, is an ancestral healer and certified psychospiritual life coach. She works with women to identify and heal unseen generational patterns created by deep ancestral traumas so you can create freedom and wealth and connection and love, all the things that you deserve and desire. Love her so much.
We have another episode with her. You can search Ash Johns, almost 30, and listen to that one. It is incredible. You can go to ashleyjohns.com as well.
As well, baby. She's the host of the podcast It's Still Happening, and she's the creator of Finding Your Freedom. This is a 12-week introductory course to ancestral healing. Highly recommend. And a facilitator of healing is happening. It's a guided program for applied ancestral blessings. Thank you all so much for listening. We're excited for you to dig into this episode and so many more. We have over 550 episodes. So have at it. Make sure you're subscribed so that every episode can be in your inbox every single week. And upcoming, we have a new podcast coming out.
Mm.
It's called Morning Microdose. So stay tuned for more on Morning Microdose. These are clips from Almost 30 that we've curated for you so that you can really start your day in a place of feeling grounded and curious and present. We think you're going to love it.
I'm so excited about this project. Me and Lindsay had a little download during a hike in Austin about this project. So I'm excited to share it with you. And welcome to our new members. I'm so glad that you chose to be a member with Almost 30, whether you joined citrine tier, amethyst tier, clear quartz tier. We have our 3 tiers in the membership now, which is super exciting, makes it more accessible for people, and then allows those who want to dig deeper the opportunity to do so.
Truly. All right, y'all. Enjoy this one. We will see you on the other side. Oh man, so I am dealing with a little bit of a cold, and I'm so thankful I have my Propolis Spray from Beekeepers Naturals. This is an all natural immune booster. It has propolis in it, which comes from the beehive, baby. We've interviewed Carly Stein from Beekeepers Naturals, and she has really brought in the power of the hive into the brand Beekeepers. Propolis, for example, is antiviral, antifungal, antimicrobial, antibacterial, and anti inflammatory. It's basically the ultimate body protector. It gets rid of sore throats. I've been spraying it in the back of my throat all day and I'm feeling a lot better. It prevents getting sick. It's 100% natural and it's made of a substance, like I said, from the hive. So the bees make this from plant and tree resins. And this is basically like their immune shield for the hive. There are zero sugars or additives in Propolis spray. It's really easy for on the go. I bring it with me when I travel too. And I highly, highly recommend. All of their products are so pure and clean. I love what they're doing at Beekeepers Naturals, really leveraging the power of the beehive for our optimal health. So check them out. I'm a huge fan. beekeepersnaturals.com/almost30 and you're going to get 25% off your first order. That's beekeepersnaturals.com/almost30 or enter the code almost 30. You're going to get 25% off your first order. Beekeepers Naturals are also available at Target, Whole Foods, Sprouts, Erewhon, and GNC. So I'm really excited for you to start feeling better every single day, starting today with Beekeepers Naturals. I am so excited to talk to you about a brand that we have been loyal to for years, and they're actually a sponsor at Camp Almost 30, and they are female owned, BIPOC owned and operated, and truly the master herbalist Adriana Ayales pours her heart and expertise into the brand Anima Mundi Herbals. They are made in the US with certified organic herbs, wild and sustainably harvested plants in a vegan and gluten-free kitchen. They never have fillers, binders, or flow agents. These are pure botanical powders, teas, and beyond. If you are looking to update and upgrade your apothecary, this is the brand. No question. I am constantly recommending goodies from Anima Mundi Herbals. So the Anima Mundi Apothecary is waiting for you. I was just perusing the other day and I got some really good stuff. So I just got the Lucid Dreaming Mix. So I actually got the bundle. This is 3 teas. One of them is the Lucid Dreaming Tea, and it is so powerful. This has relaxing plants, also known as nervines, such as organic skullcap, blue lotus, passion flower, and kava kava. It also has adaptogens like ashwagandha and tulsi, and these herbs were used since ancient times to assist the body in entering deep states of meditation and sleep. I love this bundle. I've been having it every night before bed. Now, I want to recommend something for beauty, okay? Beauty, I love the rose powder. So the rose powder organic heart opener, I swear, has just not only opened my heart, but has truly just reduced the inflammation in my body, which brings just like an incredible beauty. When I look in the mirror, I'm going to own it. So this is an exquisite blend. It's fluffy, it's deeply aromatic. It contains many qualities that can help benefit the body, and the healing benefits are just unbelievable. It has particular healing benefits around relieving the heart, depression, anxiety, psychospiritual related imbalances, and many more. And I highly, highly recommend. This is the Rose rose powder. It's 100% rose powder, organic heart opener. Can't wait for you to try. Now, for our listeners, I'm excited for you. Okay. You're going to get 15% off with code almost30 when you go to animamundiherbals.com. That's animamundiherbals.com. Okay. animamundiherbals.com. ANIMAMUNDI herbals.com. Use the code almost30 for 15% off.
Yeah.
Well, let me lay on one more compliment and see how y'all receive
Thank
this.
you.
Can't wait.
Because I find it phenomenal that y'all can keep growing and still speak to an audience. Of course, your audience is growing and getting older and going through things as well. But I find for me personally, I'm like, I'm in a different space than I was when I started my business. And what does that feel like to have the cadence and the resonance to still serve people at a certain space, even though my personal life has shifted? It's been something that I've been thinking about a lot. And I have one of my advisors was like, I don't think it's incongruent for you. I think your business, your offering matches where you are in life, which I don't want that. I actually want a separation.
Oh, wow.
Tell me more.
Yeah. It just feels like the offerings, the language, the ways things were being offered were specific to beginning ancestral healing, going deeper into the energetics of the family dynamics, wanting to have the permission to do something differently or to walk your own path. Where now I'm like, I'm in that shit. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really give a shit. I don't want to explain. I don't want to
Yes.
like, you know, and it's not that we don't honor or I don't honor the phases or the steps or when you're starting. It's just, it feels like I have to kind of double back and be someone with whom I'm not when I want to be completely in the energetics of where I've moved into.
Yes.
And I personally still feel a tension in that. I'm just like, this feels wonky. But when I'm in the work, right, with clients or in group or when I'm writing, it feels really good. But there's moments where it just doesn't. Like, it's just, So
I know it's so hard because I have such a hard time with that too, because I'm like, am I ever going to, because I feel like I learn something and I become so obsessed with understanding it. And then I move on. I'm like, whatever. Like, I just think of topics and things that I've talked about and gone through where people are talking about them now. And I'm like, I talked about that 2 years ago and I'm no longer interested. And I kind of wish I could talk about that now because people are talking about it. And then it would be, like sober curious. I haven't drank since I was like 26. Like my experience with drugs, like whatever it was. I'm like, I talk about something for like a day and then I'm like, yeah,
moving on.
That was it.
Yeah.
Like that was
I think that's
pretty
like,
much it.
Do you consider yourself a starseed?
Yes,
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
sure.
I think there are light speed workers here and we
Yes.
move like one of my shamanic teachers, healers, friends, advisors was like, you move so fast that I don't even know how you take what happens spiritually and translate it as you do in this realm. Because as soon as you move quickly. And I think y'all, we are kind of those people. And there's lots of us out here.
Yes, 100%. But it's like so you're moving quickly. And I think a lot of people can relate to this in our community because it's, we're being the multidimensional people in the experience. And then the social media or the business seems a little two-dimensional where it's like, that's what I feel like where, how do I translate to this person in a marketing way what it is? How do I express it in a way for them to understand? Because when I think about people and the way, I always listen to the way people describe people. It's like, oh, this is the person that this. This is the person that this. And they describe the one attribute that they consume from that person. And sometimes I'm like, oh man, I wish I had that one consumable element that people could use or portray to others in a way that's easy to understand, where you're like, oh, that's this person. That is this person for this.
I think you have that.
Tell me what it is.
Yeah. Okay, so hold on. Let me just feel into it a little bit more. To me, my experience of you with that one thing is love living. Like loving the evolution of life, bringing in joy and beauty and fun and expression of womanhood.
Wow.
That's what I think of with you.
Wow.
And also
I love that.
You just give me more of the sporty side. Like you give me business and sport, but living life.
Yes.
Like
Loving life, but with abs.
Yeah, that's it. Like I've always
swishy
thought that of
pants.
you.
Yeah, the swishy pants.
I've always thought that of you. And I don't know why, but I have.
See, this is why, and you bring up a good point about me, which I want everyone to hear on the podcast. No, just kidding. You bring up a great point, which is having people be able to reflect back to you these things. Yeah. So when you are in the moments of needing more clarity on your path or where you're going or how you're perceived, it's really important that you can have friendships or people in your life that are like, hey, this is actually what I see clearly, because sometimes we're not seeing things clearly. You're kind of in the muck of it or in the doubt, and you can't really see or contextualize the truth.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on what you said about like having that one thing. And I think like social media and just being seen by people in that way makes it a very interesting experience. Cause I feel like there are parts of me that I'm like, if they got all aspects of who I am, the whole multidimensional experience, I would feel so vulnerable to the eyes on me. And I think I like I crave a little bit of privacy, but then there are moments where I totally relate, or we're in this space where everyone has like these niches of expertise or study or what they're sharing. How do you ever feel that way?
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like it feels flattened. Like two things.
yes.
One, it's either through social media, everything feels very two-dimensional. It's like this is, and the words that we say and that we share don't even carry the gravitas of what we're really talking about. Like it's totally experiential.
Oh my God.
And I was like, the English I don't even care what language. I mean, obviously English isn't always the most expressive, but there's something about the language that doesn't encapsulate all that is true when you're truly in your healing journey, and like the embodiment, like the words you just don't match. And the words on top of social media flattening it and making it so digestible, there's something that gets lost in the mix. But to your point, I definitely feel that. I've been struggling. And like the moments when I disappear from social, it's straight up because I'm like, that's enough. I'm going through something new and I want to process and have the time to put it together. And I don't care what anyone says about consistency. Like I need that as a human. I need it to honor my process and who I am. And I don't want to just keep pumping something out or regurgitating something that I've already said when something new is coming through. But it definitely feels very vulnerable. It's almost like, I don't, hold on. There's another piece I want to say about this, but I want to let it come back up again. Can you touch on it one more time?
Yeah, just this idea that there is no way that like the full experience of who we are can be expressed through social media, yet there is kind of this self-imposed pressure to do that at times, whether it's like, oh, share more about this or be more of this. And sometimes I just have that feeling of, I kind of want this to be my own experience because I can be so impressionable when eyes are on me.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank
I
you.
love that noticing.
Thank you so much.
I think we all are, honestly.
I mean, really.
When the camera comes on, everyone's like, yeah.
I do this all the time, but still.
Because there's a dissonance between what I know I'm giving and and the depth of like who I am. And sometimes I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're just getting this one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that even when we try to open the aperture to share more of that or to explain it, it is opening up a doorway for an energetic leak, right?
Yes.
Or like energetic penetration. And I've experienced that. Like there was a period where I was really afraid to show up online because I did have like a straight up psychic attack. I think you and I spoke about it for a moment where I was like, someone is incredibly jealous, but also don't like the way that I'm presenting the work and how I'm making it more accessible and making it more inclusive, not a closed system. And the more that I tried to talk about it, the more that I felt like I really didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
So I think there is an interesting dance of how do we show up in the world online and in person to really express what we know and what we've been given as part of our calling, but also be protected, but also offer some depth and some nuance, but also hold some for myself because everyone's going on their own journey. Even if I gave you the details of every single thing and brought you with a camera crew, as we were talking about, to capture it all, you still wouldn't feel it. Like you don't know it until you do it yourself. You can hear what we're saying a billion times, but the moment that you step deeper into your own thing, then it clicks. You'll be like, oh, that's what Lindsay and Ash and Krista were talking about. Like, in my own version, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think, that person or that situation with you, the psychic attacks, it's like, those are such tests, and the up levels. It's like, because I think now, and, we've gone through our own experiences with things. It's like, ooh, how can I be so big where I'm like, bring it on, like bring it the fuck on. Like, let's fucking go. Because that is the energy I want to embody instead of like the scared, fearful energy, which I've been in so much in my life where I'm like, ooh, I feel a lot of eyes. This feels uncomfortable. I feel a lot of eyes. Like I feel a lot of projections. I feel a lot of things. And being so in it that you're like, who fucking cares? Bring it on.
Mhm.
And just kind of like having that psychic conversation with that person. But that's what's so crazy about, the social media world and being online is that I realized, a few weeks ago or maybe a few months ago before I was going to bed, I was thinking about this couple. I was thinking about this couple that I saw online. And I was like, oh my God, they like kiss all the time. And it was Courtney Kardashian and Travis Barker.
Okay, great. I love this. I'm like, what couple?
Yes, yeah, everyone's like, okay, you guys,
so great.
it was Travis. And I was like thinking about them. I'm like, oh, they're like kissing, blah, blah. And I was like in bed next to my husband with my cats in my room and I was like, whoa, that is not okay. That I'm like taking up psychic space and energy and I'm having doing the mental movie in my head of someone else's relationship and experience. And right before I'm about to go tenderly into the dream world, I'm like, I need to like have a little bit of hygiene around that.
Oh, I love
And people, when we follow these people, we think about them all the time. Like thinking about how much energy and time is being spent on thinking about your favorite influencers or your favorite celebrities or your favorite people. It's like crazy. And we were talking about this recently. For us, it's like as public figures or whatever, it's like creating like a hologram sort of experience.
Yes.
I literally was about to bring that
Yes.
up. I forgot that we had that conversation,
Yes.
but it came up with me and my ancestors. They were like, it's time for you to project the person who runs this business. And not that it is like inauthentic, but you need to have a separate version of you that goes out and does this work where you have protections in place and you can move in your real life without having to be all up in it. Because I'm a triple Pisces. I'm incredibly
I was just thinking,
Yes.
Taurus. Like I can feel all the things. And to your point, Chris, so we're creating energetic relationships all the time and tendrils. And like one of the practices I will guide people through when we start working together is like just feel where your energy is connected to other people for a moment. Like I want to guide you to see your aura. And you guys know what we didn't do before we got started that
I
we have to
know.
go back to.
Yes.
And pull yourself back in and sever some of those things and get whole again. And like you'll realize sometimes I'm like, bring the energy in through your eyes of what you saw on social media. Pull yourself back in and let go of some other people's stuff,
Mm.
But before we do it, I got to say one more thing that's so good about this. One of the things, and along with your holographic person, that I've been instructed and have been practicing, because I had slipped up on my spiritual hygiene for sure around this, And one of the things was using the vulnerability as the shield, like full alchemizing. To your point, bring it on. I'm going to show up even more. Like my purity and the way that I'm showing up is the fear. It's like, be so loving, be so kind that it just reflects back. Like I am fully in my power. I'm fully in my purpose. And any and all things coming towards me that don't want to support that for whatever reason, it's for their calling or for their reason that they're being this way. Cool. Work through it on your own, but let it not be absorbed by me because I'm using my vulnerability as the shield or as the power. Yeah.
Yeah. Transmuting what we would normally feel is either too much or something that we have shame around, like being vulnerable. I've been thinking about that a lot. And I've been like kind of transmuting certain entities, whether it's vulnerability or like money. And like rather than it being something that I'm reaching for, it's like money as the guide or money as a coach of sorts. But I love that piece about vulnerability being the shield. What has been your experience specifically like in whether it's being vulnerable online or within your one-on-one work that you've experienced like that protection?
I'll talk about both, but just remind me.
Yes, I got you.
In the one-on-one work, it's really helpful because it allows people to not attach to you as a guru. And like one of the reasons why I really didn't want to step into my power in the way that I have more recently, because I was like, oh, all these people are going to be always looking to me. My relationship to my work and mothering people and mothering my business is like, I don't want that relationship anymore. I sent out this wild email where I was like, I am no longer devoted to this business. The most
I love you.
unsubscribed ever.
No way.
Even though I
Get
was
out.
I was explaining why and what that meant as it relates to healing the mother wound and over mothering, and like how that wound, that ancestral trauma was still playing out in my business. Sure, I've chosen not to be a mom yet, but I was a mother to this business and over mothering it and over giving and over like tending. And I think people were like, fuck off, bitch. I don't know. I didn't ask them.
Wow.
But most unsubscribes I ever. And I was like, thank you. Like, wow. And I had to like
Cleaning
sit
house.
with myself and like, yeah, totally. So That's one of just like, I am in this work. I'm a couple steps, maybe a lot of steps, maybe a lot of lifetimes. It's my last lifetime ahead of people, quote unquote. But I'm doing this to help and inspire people on their own journey, not to attach to my sled, you know?
Mhm.
So that's one way. Like the more I tell vulnerable stories of me really living in, I'm not saying stories of like 5 years ago. I'm like, so 5 days ago, let me tell you how I
Mhm.
practiced this
Yes.
and jumped in. And I find that the amazing women that I'm calling into my space appreciate that. Like we laugh together, we humanize, and we really sit
Mhm.
in a way where it's a dynamic relationship. It truly
Mhm.
is. So that's one. This is actually really funny. So y'all know I'm born in Detroit.
Mhm.
My dad lives in Southfield, right past 8 Mile World. So this is 8 Mile reference, right?
Used to
When
work in
Rabbit in
Southfield.
the movie, yeah, but Rabbit in the movie, Eminem goes, he raps and he says all the things. And I do live in a trailer park and I do, and no, 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 no.
Mm.
So now what do you have to use? Like, what do you have to use? So I've sat down and been like, when this business, this healing business was birthed, it was because I was so vulnerable and real about my own healing journey and what I was witnessing and why up and packed everything and left Chicago and went to Indonesia. And like that level of vulnerability allowed people to come in, but also be like, huh, she's not fucking around. Like she
Mm.
doesn't really care. Like this is exactly who she is. And I just have to take it or leave it. That's it.
Mhm.
So, I don't know, I feel like coming back to that, like, especially because the book writing tour is coming up, I've been like, "Let me slow down and come into that energetics of writing vulnerably," where when it goes out on the internet, it's something that, mm, I don't know, I just feel it as like a stance, like it's taking a stance of who
Mhm.
I am, and you're either going to respect that, or even if you lean up against the wall of that, you can't penetrate it, you can't break
Mhm.
through it.
Yes.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yes.
It's so interesting because with almost 30, it's so relatable, the journey where you're like it's so magnetic when you're in that. For us, when we started, it was just so magnetic because we were so truthful and honest, and we still are to this day, but there was a different piece of, like, rawness
Mm.
where and there's a different cocoon you have when no one's really watching, and then when people start watching, it's like, "Okay, now I need to be vulnerable because they're watching and they want me to be
Yeah.
vulnerable." Or they want me to be this way, or they want me to be, and so it's so different and hard to come back to that because now that you have the guise of an audience, it's always that relationship between the energy of an audience that you have to sort of be mindful of, and it sort of like can taint it a little
Mm.
bit because you're like, how do I get back to? Because vulnerability is truth, obviously it's a powerful place to be vulnerable. What if that is not the truth of where you are? And I'm not saying this to you, I'm saying this in general. And we're thinking that the vulnerability is the path, or we're knowing that the vulnerability was the path to the connection or the greater audience or that authenticity that we got from when we were with.
Well, here's what I hear as you're speaking, and I don't know if this is the answer. This is
Mhm.
totally exploratory at this
Mhm.
point, per usual.
Mhm.
But what comes to mind is let me let go of control
Mhm.
and just know that I am protected right from a space of truth
Yeah.
of where I'm at and what it connects back to the work that I'm here to do. Have my holographic person in
Mhm.
place, do my cleansing rituals, and let God and let the ancestors deal with
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like that's like the formula that comes to me because there is no, if I over engineer it,
Mhm.
it's not going to feel right. And I've done that. Like I've had, shout out to y'all because I do appreciate you, but I've had like guest writers. I've had
Mhm.
people write for me or
Yeah.
look over my work and be like, oh, this is your brand I'll write for you. And I'm like, okay, but the energetics weren't there. And I'm like, it needs to be me. Like, this is my life's work. It can't be outsourced in how I express it. And so I want to keep that authenticity. I want to show up in that vulnerability. I want to like the image that comes to me, and I actually have this. I bought this to help remind me. It's one of those hourglasses,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
glass
Mhm.
hourglasses, where I open up to spirit. Here's all the things that are true about my journey and my work. And now let me funnel it down to what do I have to say right now? And then let me open up and be even more like those who come through that
Mm.
can get all the rest that's in the reservoir underneath. And I
I
literally
love
keep
that.
it, I
Wow.
keep it on my desk and I'll flip it just to remind myself also that this level of vulnerability isn't for all the people. Like the message changes as you move through. When you stay and you go through the process, or as the marketing people say, the funnel, which by the way, none of my funnels are right. Them shits are fucked
I
up.
know.
Okay, so I don't do any of that.
Almost every day, I'm like, we need to get our funnels right.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
right? It's like
too complicated.
so complicated. Like it's just a hot mess back there, but you'll get a confirmation email.
Yeah. 100%. Literally. You'll get a birthday card. It's all good.
Straight up. But yeah, that's the only thing that comes to mind. Like I
love
can't
that.
over control
Yeah.
it. But
I think that's a good one, thinking about the hourglass for people, because it's also your channel. You know, your crown chakra is like
Totally.
that place where you're sort of getting messages from spirit. And how can you bring that through the third eye, through the throat? And it's almost like getting a little bit more tender with it through the heart and through the sacral, and then kind of letting it down through the root, you know, is really
Yeah.
beautiful.
I deeply agree. And let me just tell you another thing. And this is really spilling some beans, y'all. Grab your tea, grab your cup.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll write about something vulnerably, but it's encoded in the energetics. It's not in the words. So I've hinted at like some healing stuff that's going on relating to body. I'm not ready to fully bring that forth as it relates to ancestors and my life and all these other pieces, but I'm going through it now. So it's like in there a little bit. When it's time, it'll come fully through. Those who are feeling it or hearing it or taking the little pieces, it'll come through. But sometimes I'm like, oh, we'll just drop a little, just a little sprinkle here and there. It doesn't need to be straight from my diary into the work or onto the internet.
I love
think
that.
that could be a little. The contamination can happen either way.
100%.
Yes.
You know.
That's what I always see with influencers or people in the space. It's like, because what I always try to come with when I'm being vulnerable is like a sense of like contained vulnerability, so that it's not like a hungry vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, like I
Yeah.
try and be like, okay, I'm contained with my vulnerability. Like there's an intention here of sharing what's real, but not like the hunger of like looking for the energy from the party or the audience to feed or soothe me. Because you can see that too, where I've seen that online where I'm like, ooh, they're actually like energy siphoning to like soothe themselves from people because they're feeling like that's how they get fed, you know, in like a weird way.
Yeah. No, that's true, and it's a slippery slope to
Yeah.
fall into that for sure.
Yeah.
Like, let me take you in the bathroom, and here's what I'm crying about, and like all
Yes.
these things. I'm like, ooh, that's a lot of energy. I
Yep.
think this is the reason why Clubhouse never rocked for me.
Oh my
It's
God.
successful for me. It's
Yo,
just
babe.
too.
Yo.
I'm like,
It
it's
was
like
yo,
entity energies.
I
I'm
remember
like,
people like, are you worried about your job? And I'm like, eat dicks. Like, what do you mean? They're like, are you worried your job is about to be like gone because of Clubhouse? And like, we would be on Clubhouse. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
we would, because people were telling us,
Yes.
go on
Go
Clubhouse,
on
talk on
Clubhouse.
Clubhouse.
yeah.
And it always felt so bizarre.
yeah.
Because it didn't feel real and connected. You would see certain people in rooms like celebrities or whoever,
Yes.
and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
And they'd be like,
what is this?
I'm Dan. I'm at work. And I'm like chewing or like, and just people just want to hear themselves.
Yes,
That's the
talking
whole
over,
thing.
Talking
a lot
over.
of one-upping, and like I was
Yes.
like, this is a lot of energy and a lot of people's energies. Like,
Yes.
that's a lot going on. I don't like it.
Yes.
On the hologram piece, I just wanted to make sure we explain, because I'm a little unclear. How would you create a hologram?
Wow. So I have a little odd relationship with prescriptions and rituals or explaining how.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to give a little bit, but I also am like,
Great.
if this intrigues you, then like tune into yourself and see how you would create a hologram.
Great.
And then let's talk about it on your underneath the comments of the post of this episode. We'll go back.
I'm
into
like,
the
my
2D
hologram
world.
is like fucking stacked. She's hot. She's beautiful. Like, just like create the best hologram.
Yeah. I mean, it's similar to if you were calling in your higher self. Like, how do I see myself if I'm fully evolved, fully gorgeous, like showing up as myself, like have all the things in my power, in my knowing? You channel and invoke her. Same
Yes.
thing with your holographic self. If I'm going to go out to work, or if I'm going to go out to inspire, if I'm going to go out to hold my message into the world, and I want to do it in a conscious, safe, protected, loving way that is rooted for me and beneficial to others, what does that feel like? And I want to pull her in, put her on, let her sit in the seat while I'm writing, let her go through what I wrote to approve it and be my editor. And I put a lot of prayers over my work. I really do. Like when when team comes and repurposes what I've already written, I'll be like, wait, let me read over it and let her read over it. Let me feel into if this is accurate or not. Let me pray over the work. Let me pray over my website, which I do all the time. Yeah, that's how it feels like for me.
Remember when we did a lot of work with Kiki, who's our healer, especially when we were going through like a lot of psychic attack. For me, it felt like in the quantum field, there's like the energy of me, there's the energy of you, there's the energy of almost 30. And it's like creating this like phantom hologram so that psychic energy can kind of be tricked into thinking that is you
Yes.
instead of the actual essence and energy of you. So it's
Mhm.
like, how can you create this like being that exists in the psychic world where all projections, all distortions, all negativity gets kind of put on the hologram you've created and not your
That's
essence?
Mm.
true. And your hologram needs cleansing too. Right?
Yeah.
They take a beating.
I know I should give that
I
hologram
can
a little
Yeah,
love,
little wash
little
up
scrub.
there. Little spa day. But that's true. I'm glad that you said that because yeah, I mean, sitting at some other place. This is like shamanic healing, right?
Yeah.
Whenever you do any shamanic journeying, you're cleansing your steps along the way. You're like walking with your indivisibility cloak or your protections or your talismans when you cross into the other realm. So same thing. I mean, one is shamanic journeying for whatever or ancestral traveling for whatever. And this is my holographic self in the spirit realm who we go to for our businesses and things like that. Yeah. Appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. I want to talk about the modalities of ancestral healing because I think that was something I don't think we talked about before in our first episode. Because when I was looking at that with what you do, I think the DNA stuff is so fascinating, how much we don't know about DNA, or I think how much is hidden from us about DNA, because they say most of our DNA is junk DNA. It's like we don't use 80% of our brain. Like all of these things are such bizarre euphemisms that we almost take as truth. And I think none of them are true. I think we're using our brain. It's just maybe not to its fullest capacity or to our fullest understanding. Or maybe it's just more left, more right. But with the DNA, it's like we're probably have this DNA that we need to learn to access or that gets turned on over time and over, the next years. But what are the methods that you have worked with for ancestral healing?
Well, let me put on my voice too, because I'm
Yes.
speculating.
Yeah.
Put on my glasses
Yes.
and get my clipboard out.
Yes.
Well, there's a couple of different ways of looking at this. And as a heads up, I do have a Lay of the Lands. It's a free ebook. You can get it on my website. You can get it on any of my YouTube channels. Because like that's the team. They're like, give us something to give away.
Yes. That's a funnel, baby.
I know, right? I'm like, all right, again, get the book, confirmation email. That's all you're getting from me, y'all. Don't worry. There's like no upsells happening here. But in it, I break down like 8 ways into ancestral healing. But truly, there's like 4 categories the way that I look at it. And I will talk specifically about DNA and like the sciences. But most times people come into, let me just research like the genealogy, the history, like the family trees, the archives. Let me research my folks, which is very accessible. The next thing to me is like lifestyle. So what do we eat? What do we sing? What do we dance? What are our recipes? What do we wear? Like all of these kind of things. And I want to wear the garbs of my people or, I don't know, do whatever your people did as a lifestyle, for example. Then you've got like spirit and religion. Like how do we honor? What's our divinity? What's our relationship to God? Or were we animistic? Like if we go back into our roots, or were we Puritans always, or pagan this, or whatever it might be. And then the sciences to me, and then obviously you got like mediumship and like speaking to the spirits. That's me. And then you got the sciences. And to me, we've had an influx because of science right now of people wanting to do DNA testing and wanting to trace back their mitochondrial DNA and see where their maternal tribes are and all of these things, which is really great. But what I find is the overlap of the spiritual aspect of awakening your DNA, which then brings another level of spiritual and in-body embodiment. Like talking to your ancestors spiritually and seeing the energetics of your lineage and what was always there or what's been forgotten or where it got severed or siphoned off and restoring that. And then you do feel an actual energetic change in your body and in your mindset that starts to shift some things. Like you have a sense, like a sensation of, oh, that doesn't resonate because I've been healing my relationship to men. Or I said I was going to trust that provision and resources and money was going to come in. And here I am like grasping at my bank account or my dollars. I feel in my body that no longer resonates. So I think the more healing that you do, or rather I know the more healing that you do, the more discovery, the more like, it doesn't matter which way in, your body starts to change, your mind starts to change, your energetic starts to change. And it's awakening things that have been lost or forgotten for a long ass time, So that's the way that I see it. I'm so sure that someone who's really a scientist can talk about how the gene expressions turns on and turns off and like all of these things. And then there's the super, super woo people who go all up in the quantum field and they're like uploading DNA codes and doing all these next level binary beats and I'm like, all right, y'all, that's great. But like, I'm not trying to like awaken the dragons within my bones. Like,
that was Jerry.
Not trying to blast
Remember Jerry?
Oh, Jerry.
We had this podcast episode with him and he was all about like his meditations were all about sort of updating your DNA.
It was powerful.
We had dragons.
Yeah, we had dragons. Yeah.
That's funny. I'm like dragons and now we're talking about dragons. I do have dragons and a rising phoenix, but I'm just saying.
Yes. Yes. Just to be clear.
But it's so interesting to think about, the shutting down of our DNA over time and the remembering piece.
Yeah.
I think it is an activation of latent DNA, but it's like the remembering piece. Cause I can imagine that our ancestors had a lot of that DNA that was activated. And then whether it's by environmental or suppression of expression or, a whole slew of things that could be suppressed in the DNA. It's really interesting to think about. Have you done any like DNA tests?
I did.
You did?
Yeah, I
Really?
did 23andMe and I also did African Ancestry.
Cool. Wow.
And I love them both. I know everyone has these like, points of views about these, but I think it's phenomenal. Take all the tests. Like they already have everything. They have your fingerprint. They got your like, whatever. Like we're already robots.
Oh my gosh, did you know
land.
at Whole Foods, they're now having a palm checkout?
Oh, nice.
They have where you put your palm on a thing and check out. Justin brought the flyer home because they were like, hi, sir, we have palm checkout. Would you like to sign up for palm checkout? And Justin's like, can I have a flyer to take to my wife to show her? Because she will not fucking believe me.
They better tell me the future or shit. If you're going to take my whole palm, you better tell me.
100%.
Yes.
Yes.
Give me an update, damn it. Every time I pick up
100%.
my veggies. That's wild. Oh, that's wild.
Okay, but they already have your stuff. So the DNA.
They have all my things. Right. Back on track.
Yes.
So I really wanted it because, again, having African ancestry, I really want to know the original tribes of my people. And by the way, like, if you're African American, y'all already know, like I'm gonna talk to y'all for a moment now. Most times everyone thinks that we're all from Nigeria or we're all from like Yoruba land or we're all like, and that's not necessarily true. Like we've got ancestry from all over. And so it's really important, I think, for everyone to do your DNA testing to get into the energetics of your people. And it could help you with some of that research stuff, right? But anyway, I did it. And turns out my maternal line is from Sierra Leone. And they're two different tribes, from the Mende people and the Limba people. And I was like, that's so interesting because that's not who people talk about all the time. Like they'll talk about, the Mende people from Sierra Leone, but mostly it's like Nigeria, it's Ghanaian, it's like all these different other regions and different tribes. And so I was like, that makes me feel really good. I want to hear the music from there. I want to like explore more, So when I listen to the music or I look at research from there, I feel a connection. I feel called there. I feel an interest of like, you don't have to question where your people are from this land. I already know where my soul is from, but like from this earth, where are my people from? And then 23andMe was interesting because it's English, it's Dutch, we've got Irish, we've got German, we've got a bunch of, they were like all over the place in Africa. And I was like, all right, we're from the whole continent. Like, there's like 0.7% from the Gambia. I was like, all right, cool, whatever. But I think there's something about placing yourself in your ancestral healing journey that can allow you to have a plethora of like places to go deeper in your research. That's kind of what I think it's great for.
So how much of the work is the research and then like beyond that, what do people do?
I do no more research after that.
Yeah. Okay. And then you just work with the energy.
Yeah. I work with the energy and I work with the spirits. I tell people, there's some great people out there who really do focus on understanding all the history and like, when did people immigrate and when did this happen in the history? Like, that's great. I'd rather hire those folks, work with a genealogist, which I have. Those things are great. But for me, it's working directly with the spirits, working with who I am and who I'm here to become and to step into, and what's the embodiment of the two. So I can remove as much, going back to DNA, the not serving parts or the dead parts or the dormant parts, or I'm going to say the dormant parts, but the parts that really aren't serving us, that were switched on to survive or switched on because of circumstance. I want to go ahead and delete that and let that go because it's not the original expression of who I am or who my people were. So let's come back to soul essence of me and the original energetics of my lineage and see that with my own eyes spiritually and begin embodying that in this life. So I always tell people when we're in the process or clients, I'm like, we're not interested in the narratives of who shot John and who did Sally. Like, we're not here to go and like gossip with our ancestors. Give me the energetics of it. Tell me what the medicine is that was lost. So what's the fragmentation that we can restore? And then what's my responsibility to embody that or practice it in my own way, in my own life that supports this life that I agreed to be in. Yeah.
How have you seen like the gifts from your knowing where you are from show up in your work recently? Like just an example so that people can kind of like touch that and know what that looks like.
Yeah, the importance of rest. Like my people did not, when I researched about the Mende and Limba people, like we know that there was a seasons and reasons for agricultural growth for a reason, like seasons and reasons for that was funny how I said
Yeah,
that.
I
But you
love
know,
it.
there's
I know, I
seasons.
liked it.
There's
Yes.
seasons. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this working all the time is not me. It's not me spiritually from my
Yes.
soul. It's not sustainable being a projector, right? A 4-1 projector at that. And it's also not in my DNA ancestrally from my maternal line. And my mother's line is the line that is like most controlling and protective of me. Like I am absolutely their daughter and they are so protective and loving of me that it's like disrespectful to who I am as a soul and to my lineage to be like pushing and working and trying to do. It's like the balance. Get your work in, enjoy and rest. Like, and I needed to see that. I kept like strategizing and being like, no, like this is what I'm building as part of the destiny. Like I'm supposed to. I don't care. All the quotes, all the different work smarter, like all the different strategies. It wasn't getting into me until I saw that.
Wow.
That I'm literally out of lineage alignment by working and living in that way. Like it made a big difference. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways of this modality of ancestral healing, of connecting directly with your lineage, is once you see it and you know the truth and what your people lost and what they want to reclaim back, like that is undeniable. There is a pride in that. There is a love in that. There's a reclamation. There's a belonging that I want to bring that on. I'm like, okay, the women will stop being the smart women and actually open up to the possibilities of life as they did before.
Yeah. What do you mean when you say smart women?
Oh, this one's good. Okay, buckle in, ladies.
Buckle in.
And I actually might cry on this one. The women in my lineage had to become really smart and really savvy to survive. And we can talk about enslavement. We can talk about colonization. We can talk about men not being able to be there to protect. We can talk about all these different things that happen. But at the end of the day, the impact was be smart, have an education, be 2 steps forward, be street savvy, you know, like know how to stretch a dollar around the block. Like that can go into the way you interacted or way they interacted with people, but also in their economics and how they handle money. It was always about being smart. Like question people, watch your back, be high alert, hyper vigilant. And that created control. And when you're that controlling, God can't come in, your ancestral help can't come in, your logic is driving you insane. You're exhausted because you believe only you can do it because you're being so smart and so controlling to survive, and it's cutting you off. And I experienced that so much. I was like, I'm the woman in my family who's like, I'm not doing that shit. I'm not going to work hard in this way, right? And like a blue collar job. I'm going to go for the white collar job. I worked in advertising. I'm going to do this. I got to college, like all these wonderful things. And at the end of the day, I was only living from the neck up.
Yeah.
Not even the neck, because I wasn't even creative. It was really from like this up. You know what I mean? And like a little back here. I'm doing motions around my head for y'all who are like listening. Right? I was detached from my body. There's less pleasure coming in. Everyone talks about faith. Like I was raised in a faith home, a Christian home, even though we were definitely Black spiritualists in our religion, our full practice. But there is no space for the universe to conspire to help you if you're only being the smart woman, if you're that attached to your survival mechanisms. So that was a big one for me. I was like, ooh. It brought in like, I have to trust. I have to be open. It brought me back to vulnerability. It brought me back to you have to let go in order to leave space for someone to come in, whether that's intimately and a partner, but also team, you know? For the record, I work with women of all colors.
Yes.
And my programs are always like 50-50, white women, Black women, women of color, people of Latin background, mixed background, whatever, like all of us come together and we do have these conversations. And the fact that we think that it's different, it's actually the same thing. Use the education, right? Be smart, go after what you want so that you can be safe, you can survive, you can have, no matter what, you'll be protected. Right. And so there's nuances to this, but at the end of the day, it was our mothers and our fathers and our grandma, whoever being like, you can't trust the world just in case, you better. It's advantageous of you too, because you don't know what will happen. And there's a truth to that. But I do think historically and through different ancestral traumas that's happened down the line, that can be grossly overextended or overexpressed, right? So that you have no access to the openness, to the being supported, to the being loved on, being unconditionally seen and given to, right? And there's a nuance to that from a racial and cultural perspective and in language. But at the end of the day, the coping mechanism is still the same. The belief is still the same. And like I actually had a client the other day who talked about this where her grandmother came through. So I always tell people we're not working with all the ancestors. And I actually don't really care about the first 5-10 generations. Like we skip over them and go beyond so that those ancestors can be elevated to the level that you are working on and that those who from the beginning back had, right? And her grandmother slid through the cracks and was like, don't trust that if you know. She was talking about her husband at the time, right? She was working through some things around men and trust and being provided and having provision and protection. And the grandmother was like, well, you know, what happens every time she really came in quickly. And we were like, whoa, first off, how'd you get through there? Second, like, that's not what we're here for because you're going to re-inject us with what we're healing. We're healing the balance of the masculine and the feminine, of men and women trusting each other in our different roles and non-binary people and whatever. Like, we're not talking about, you know, right? But like, that's not what we're here for, Grandma. Like, thank you for telling us and reminding us, but we are healing this. And then she was like, oh, okay. All right, I'll just go back and sit in my spot. And then we went back to her remembering what it was like or being shown what it was like to have provision and to be showing up in her full womanhood. Wow. Yeah.
And do you pick apart like when it was lost? Is that helpful?
Oh, yeah. So helpful.
To the healing?
It's helpful in the sense that, you know, there's an understanding and awakening that happens. Like we just want to become aware and to see. So I do guide people to be like, how many generations back are we working with? Because that's also an indication of how much energy it's going to take to move some things sometimes.
Right.
If they're saying it's 30 generations, I'm like, all right, girl, buckle in. Like, you know, let's be watered up, take your time. We're going to space these sessions out. And then other times, you know, it can be a lot of generations and they're like, no, we've all been waiting. We're all tired of this shit. Like we're ready to let it go, you know? But it is helpful. It's beautiful to see. Like you can literally look over the entire lineage and see the partitions or the fragmentations. And then you know what you're working with essentially.
Have you redefined like for yourself smart?
Oh yeah.
Or intelligence?
Yeah. I really appreciate you asking that. To me, and this also connects back to vulnerability. To me, it's not even smart as in trying to get over or protect. It's about coming back to the original essence of my femininity. Like that is from God, like original, like my love, my heart, my desire, my emotions, being responsible for myself instead of like spewing all my shit everywhere, being like, let me go handle my things, you know, right? That is smart woman to me now. Yeah. Thanks for asking that. Because I'm very proud of that work. Like truly. It softened my heart. My heart has grown. Like, you know, people say connect to your heart and you're like, yeah, okay, I'm connected. Like I feel my heart being like every time. It's bigger. It's so hot. It's like an energy battery. I'm like, whoa. Like, y'all, wait, that's not for a minute. Like it's so full of so much light and like light and radiance that I appreciate. And I see it being reflected in the work. But I do think in this particular modality, you do go through the tough stuff or see the tough things in order to step into this level of embodiment. That for me, it was right. And I think the people who are drawn to me understand that too. I'm not saying it's the only way, but there's something about the transmutation and the reclamation that allows that level of energetic being to just be so potent and delicious. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the reclamation, I think this is where I was kind of going before, but it's like of the words of, or redefining the words that sometimes are seen as feminine that we've sort of kind of labeled as not good because we're in such a patriarchal society where we're like soft, not good.
Yeah.
Sensitive, not good. Emotional, not good. And kind of re-looking at all of these words we use to define the masculine and the feminine energies and kind of like having a moment with that. It's like, okay, what do I think about when I think about soft or sensitive or emotional? It's like, ooh, I definitely have a negative connotation, or I definitely think too much, too whatever. But when I think of strong, I think of the masculine, and sort of having that exploratory conversation within ourselves to understand if we're looking to be more feminine or more embodied in the feminine energy. Like, how can we see those words as like powerful and beautiful, or those words as on equal playing field as the masculine words, you know?
I like that a lot because to me, this invites in the conversation of how paradoxical healing is.
Yeah.
Right? I actually feel stronger the softer
Yes.
I am. The more feminine I am, the more powerful I am, actually. And it's interesting because, I mean, this is for you ladies. I just love y'all because you bring out all the stuff.
I love you.
It's like, I love a little hair flip. Y'all are so good.
She's getting hot.
Right?
Love
I'm like, I need
you.
my jacket. No, I don't. I don't need it at all. Let me take off another layer. But like I was playing in my femininity and like doing some prescriptions that my ancestors and I were working on. And there was a time in my life, I've only had like 3 white boyfriends. And I wouldn't even claim them as full boyfriends. We were like dating and like fucking around, right? And so I was like, I desire to date a spectrum of men. Like, why do I believe, and this is some real healing happening, right? In lineage, why do I believe that only men of color, only Black men will be attracted to me? Like, where did that come from? What the fuck is that, right? Because
Yes.
I have all kinds of friends from all over the world. Why wouldn't I date all kinds of people from all over the world, right? And so I was like trying some things on, right? Instantaneous. I mean, I had white men opening doors and like speaking to me and like crossing the street to talk to my dog. And I'm like, what the? It was like so quick, so quick.
Wow.
And after we did that, I was like, oh my goodness, I feel so expansive. There are no limitations to the kind of woman that I am and what I want to experience and what I want to help birth into the world and be an example of. And it was the fastest example. Like, I was so afraid of men in general, but especially white men. I was like, they will never like me or they'll judge me or whatever it might be. And that has shifted completely. I can't believe I'm talking
I'm so
about
glad you shared that.
I love you bringing
That's
this
real.
up.
I'm so glad you shared that.
Yeah.
That's real.
I was like, and this kind of goes to your point, language of everyone's talking about decolonial this and all the things. And I'm like, I don't know. To me, the energetics behind it, and this, again, there's a spectrum. There's a bell curve, right? When we first introduce something in awareness and then having to drive home the deeper thing. And then we come around like, what's the truth here that we all want to be connected and with love? And I'm in that spot in my journey. I think that's going to happen as it relates to race relation and healing as well. I think we're done with this, but we're afraid of letting it go. I do.
Yeah.
And I've always known the work of ancestral healing with me and doing whole lineage healing was going to get there. I just didn't know when. And I think we still have a little bit more time, but we heard it here first, folks, on Almost 30.
When you say that, and I'm assuming maybe you've said this before out loud, but is there any fear or any feeling around saying that as like your truth as a Black woman?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Deep fuck extra capital underline.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of rhetoric and points of views around this. And the things that come to mind is like, oh, sell out, and oh, because you're this, or because you've made it here, or you earned this, or all of those storylines. And the truth is, I've always felt this way. Always. I've always, even as a little girl at different schools, I went to an all-Black school, grew up in Detroit, lived in Chicago, and then I would be in the suburbs in like a predominantly white school. And I'd be like, why aren't we all together? Like, why can't we keep saying freedom and love and unity. We keep saying these things, and these books of these great healers and liberatory people have told us, but we still haven't stepped into the embodiment of it and at mass scale. And so, I think we're going to come into a new wave of what does it look like to truly stand together and like let these things go, like in every aspect of our lives.
What would you
I
say
feel that
then?
journey.
The
But it is scary. I'm not going to lie.
yeah, it's powerful. I mean, I really
Proud of
appreciate
you,
it.
yeah.
So what would you say then to maybe the white woman listening, like who would love that as well, but is nervous or isn't sure the right steps to take in that conversation or that relationship or that experience of feeling like there is oneness and unity, but also feeling a little bit tepid or shy
Yeah.
because they're not sure they're going to do the right thing.
Oh, I know y'all. Y'all are my
Hi.
clients. Hey, y'all.
Yeah, yeah,
Y'all are my
like,
community. Yeah,
I'm
my
like,
community. And they know, like they know.
Yes.
So this is, and I want to give a shout out to every white woman who's ever trusted me to come into my containers. Like I mean, all the women who've ever trusted me, but especially because the things that we talk about and the bravery in all places is like, that can be no human, I don't care what your race is, wants to go into a container and not know if they're going to be safe or if they're going to be beat down on or called out or like, it was getting a little nasty out there. I don't know about y'all. Like as a Black woman, I was like, ooh, y'all, like, are we still coming out of love? Like, and love has many expressions, but like, where are we? How are we showing up in this conversation in a way that's edifying and helpful to everyone with the desired outcome, right? So, y'all white women, I would say do exactly that. Like, first off, whenever someone asks me how, I say, who are you? Who are you and why do you want to do this? Because you have to lean on who you are in the tough moments, right? I've seen people be like, oh shit, we're going there. White women in the groups like, oh shit, we're going there. And I'm like, just breathe. We're in here. And I'm not saying what someone of color or what a Black woman says is 100% true.
Yeah.
And neither what you're saying is 100% true. But somewhere in here, we're going to get to some love if we all have the capacity to remember who we are and why we're here and what we want. So find your programs or people that you trust to come into community with, work on who you are, remember who you are, and why you're doing this work. 'Cause it's for us individually, but it's also for us as a collective. And we can't do it alone. It's the reason why I've never, and this has rubbed my Black sisters wrong. Like it's rubbed them in a not good way, where they would be like, I only want to do stuff for Black women. And I would be like, all right, cool. That's your calling. I'm not saying that's not needed because God knows it is needed in certain, and I've never felt that way for me. I've never felt that I only want to have separate groups because there is something that happens in the witnessing of someone else who is quote unquote different than you or who looks different than you that allows us to connect the dots. Like we need togetherness and some separation, but I feel like there needs to be more separation and capacity to have those conversations together.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I feel as though, and this is someone who really hasn't dug into her lineage. And especially as a white woman, I feel as though there is that major disconnection from our ancestors and lineage. I think there's a little bit of, it's like, it's not shame. It's, what I want to say, there's not this celebration of the lineage in my experience within my family. And when you said know who you are, it's such an important piece that I'm kind of realizing now is so important for those conversations. And I think that's been the missing piece for me because I'm like, who am I? And I could give you some adjectives and some things that I believe in really truly. But then there's that piece of like, who am I related to where my family is from and what their beliefs and traditions and, the list goes on are. Do you find that there's a difference between, and not to kind of separate, but it's like the way white women experience their ancestry and women of color?
Yeah, definitely. So the two things is I see women of color and Black women being like, let's jump in. I want to reclaim. I want to remember. How do we get here? Let's get this shit done. And I'm like, whoa, let's slow down. You need to feel. We need to take this step by step and remember that there's blessings and goodness that you are pulling in, not just ones. With the white women, I see exactly what you just explained or shared. It was like, I'm a little fearful. I don't want to use the word shame, but sometimes people do straight up say shame. Like, what is there possibly in my lineage to claim based on what society and history currently is. I feel
Yes.
like, and not to put words in your mouth, but generally what I've heard and witnessed is like the women haven't done things. They didn't show up. They didn't, they didn't have the power that y'all have. And the men have created this whole patriarchal shit. So what the fuck am I going back in
Yeah.
here
Yeah,
for?
exactly.
Like,
Yes.
what do I have?
Yes.
But let's remember that this is only one piece of history. There is
Yes.
so much more beyond that
Yeah.
that has been forgotten. So I say, as much as Black people and people of color are always talking about colonialism and colonization, all these things, I'm like, yo, this has harmed everyone. Like
Mhm.
white women, white people, y'all have a beautiful history. Like y'all spirits start to come through. And I'm like, oh yeah, like there is
Mhm.
some magic up in there
Mhm.
if you want to tap in and reclaim it. So I would just say that I get it. I know that you might be afraid or a little apprehensive, but when you get in, it's the best gift to give yourself.
Mhm.
And that energy, that knowing of where you're from, the way your people would speak, like how they move, what they believed before all this occurred, before the Christian Crusades came in and made them and took their lands and made them lose their original indigeneity. And like all of that stuff is in there. Like I've seen white women literally reclaim songs, like humming and hearing a tune, and then their ancestors
Mm.
telling them what that was sung for,
Mm.
and how they
Yeah.
can apply it in their life right now.
Wow.
And then I'll add one more piece here.
Yes.
There's like this marriage that I like to see, not just across the bloodlines, because you have like 4 main bloodlines and you can I usually work one at a time with people on them. But there is the marriage of my ancestral agreements and what we're reclaiming from
Mhm.
my blood ancestry on these lands, and also your soul spirit being. And when you
Mm.
have those 2 things
Mhm.
online and you can fact check that with your human design, with your Akashic records, with any divinations and tarot, like when you put those things together, you know exactly who the fuck you are. And your
Wow.
authority and your recognition, you just move differently. And then the game now is all of the embodiment practices and who you want to hire to support you to keep you on and honoring that track of embodying
Mhm.
the remembering. Yeah.
I think too, it's interesting that, and just kind of, I'm thinking about this now, like how when white women are coming to the situation, we're feeling shame and guilt and all those things. But it's like, then are we assuming that we've been white in every lifetime?
Right.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm like, what's that assumption too? That's like, is that an example of how separate we truly feel? Where we then assume that we have never had a lifetime where we've been anything but white?
Yes.
I
Like,
think
it's
so.
kind of an interesting thing to, even whether it's Black or whether it's Puerto Rican or whether it's Haitian, whatever, it's like, what is that
So you're saying on a, like at
assumption?
the soul level.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because even
Yeah.
if we're going that far out there, and we're going that far out there to believe, and I believe this obviously, that we have had many lifetimes and many incarnations, we learn those things. There's this information that's passed down through our DNA, and then we're going to be like, we were always white.
Right.
Like that's
And
like
that's it.
so wild
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
think about.
Always
And it's
white and don't want to like go
it's
into or apprehensive
yes,
of going into remembering what
yes,
was before whiteness or what
Yes.
was even in the
yes,
whiteness. Like
yes.
I actually was joking around being like, I don't even want to use the words white and Black anymore. Like, let's just
Mhm.
annihilate that
I
alone.
know.
Because we keep saying we don't want to do this, but we're still using the language to your
Yes,
point, Krista.
yes.
But yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the number one, like regular, basic,
Mhm.
like the first question someone asked
Yes.
me is like, well, what about my past life? And I'm like, yeah, that's valid. Reach on that
Mhm.
shit too.
Mhm.
And I'll still come back to, but you're presenting the way that you're presenting. I'm presenting the way that I'm presenting
Mhm.
in this life. So get the information from past lives, get the information from ancestors, right, before us. And then again, let's come back into what does it mean for the way that I look and who I am and
Mhm.
what I said I was going to do in this lifetime.
Yeah.
That's really interesting to me.
Yeah, yeah, because that's interesting because it's like the way you're presenting in this lifetime and the opportunity you have to heal your ancestry would lead you down the path of probably healing the parts of the lifetimes where you were in this type of white, Black
Mhm.
body experience, man, woman, whatever. So maybe it's like that sort of thing. But I would even imagine that the ancestors, if you're going so far back where you're beyond the sort of Blackness and whiteness of the history that we remember so vividly, they're probably like, there's so much more.
Yeah. And they show you that. They're like,
Yes.
what? The
Yes.
fuck?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And even down to things like, those of us who were raised in a one family home or had abandonment around fathers or mothers or whatever it
Mhm.
might be, they'll be like, the hell? Let me show you what we did. Like, that is
Mhm.
not how you're supposed to be. You're supposed to have protection or you're supposed to have this. Like,
Mhm.
Yes.
let us help you clean this up because that's not how the fathers were initiated and raised to treat their daughters or to treat their sons or their offspring, right? So yeah, when you get back up in there, the ancestors are like, yo, where did we go wrong? Oh, I can see where we went wrong. But no one called on us. No one said, because we were all severed from these practices. So before we would summon them or call upon them or look to the wisdoms of the lineage to help, and none of us have done that in so long. So part of the connection in the very beginning is just calling them and having them show up, right? Then cultivating a relationship with them, and then getting into, here's what I feel like needs to be healed so I can be in the life and the calling that I'm here to be in. And also, what do you see that has happened in the lineage that we need to address that I don't even understand, right? Because people will come and think the generational pattern is around money or men or whatever, scarcity mindset or whatever it might be. And meanwhile, it's about something completely different. Those are just the symptoms. I was blue in a past life. Actually, I'm a blue person.
Oh,
No
blue
way.
avian?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I can see it. You look like it when I close my eyes.
Yeah, thanks.
That's the whole thing.
Very
We're going to
bright.
be like, I was a blue person. I was a starseed. I was
Yes.
these things. And then be like, and I was white in
Right.
every life. Like, that's so silly that we even think that.
We're so much more. We're so much more.
Okay, the warmer summer months are upon us. We must remain hydrated, and I need to tell you about LMNT. So drinkelement.com/almost30 is where you're going to go to learn more. But let me just tell you, I have one element every single day. I pour this electrolyte powder mix, which has no sugar, into 24 ounces of water. And I swear to you that not only do I feel more hydrated, I am more energized, I have less brain fog, and I just feel like my body is more optimally ready to be present, be active. I feel great. I am so excited because they're bringing back their grapefruit flavors, okay? And they brought it back. It's a limited time only flavor. It's here for a good time, not a long time. So stock up. I'm really, really excited for you to try LMNT. Bring this into your routine. Feel better, feel more hydrated. It's so important that we are getting the proper amount of sodium, the proper amount of magnesium and potassium, which LMNT has all three. All of the science is on their website, but I just cannot sing their praises enough. I take this with me when I travel. I just do it here at home every single day. It's been a game changer and I feel amazing. So again, for that electrolyte drink mix without the sugars, without the fillers or BS or gluten or anything artificial, drinkelement.com/almost30. Okay. Drinkelement.com/almost30. And you're going to get a pack, a free sample pack with your purchase of every single flavor. So drinklmnt.com/almost30. drinklmnt.com/almost30. I would say the most rewarding thing about running your own business is giving your partners, your clients, you name it, a really great experience. And we pride ourselves on that here at Almost 30. And it really started years and years ago, early on in our business, when we started to use HoneyBook. Okay, there's a lot of online tools out there, but it can be really tough to kind of bring it all together. But HoneyBook makes it super, super easy. It gives you all the tools you need to manage inquiries, legal contracts, scheduling, payment, processing, and everything it takes to serve clients. So we used this to manage communication, invoicing, and all that jazz with our partners that we had early on in the podcast and continue to serve. But it just really makes it all streamlined in one place. So if you are an entrepreneur out there, y'all, do not wait, okay? You want to make this process as easy as possible, not only for your customer, your clients, but for you as well. This is how independent professionals manage their workflow and cash flow. So you're going to get paid. You're going to get paid more and more quickly because of HoneyBook. So start your free trial at honeybook.com/almost30 and enjoy HoneyBook for $1 a month for the first 6 months with promo code almost30. This is insane. Don't even think about it. You must. honeybook.com/almost30 to start your free trial and enjoy HoneyBook for $1 per month for the first 6 months with promo code almost30.
I was interested in talking about like inherited blessings as well, because I think when we talk about inherited trauma, that's sort of like what people attach to and what people really get stuck on. I think And even when we were talking before, it's powerful that people are now understanding healing in a really deep way. But then it also feels like sometimes people get stuck in the band of their trauma and their experience. So I think it's important that we bring in around blessings too.
I deeply agree. And I'll tell you, this is like the no. So if you ever work with me, I'll let you know what people say about me. They'll be like, Ash is all water and all fire. Okay. And it's true. In my charts, I have very little earth and very little air, even though I'm
That's all I
an
have.
amazing.
Literally. She has all air.
That makes sense. I totally get it.
It's true.
But I bring that up to say, I call you in with this, like, again, vulnerability and this love and this healing, and let's do this. And like, the connective pieces of the heart, that's all water. But then there comes a point where the fire comes out, and this is what brings out the fire. Full disclaimer. The thing that I see women do all the time is we'll get into the healing, stuff is happening, they're starting to embody it, they're feeling so good, and they'll be like, but we've always done this it's because I was raised this way in my family. And you like, and then because when I was a kid, they'll go right back into it and grab it through language, right? They'll go right back into the energetics and the wound and just re-embed and re-imprint right back. And I'm like, we're not starting over, but let me just point this out. Stop grabbing at the wounds that you're healing. Stop identifying with the family patterns that you are letting go of, that you're moving away from, that you are restoring love and possibilities beyond. It's the one thing. I'm like, whoa, stop. What do we really want here? Stay on that. Stay on that.
So how would you support them in staying on what they really want? Because I guess that makes complete and total sense to me. And then there is that part of really seeing what it is for what it is, whether it's the trauma or the inherited story, belief, etc. Like, how do you kind of balance that?
And I'm not talking about bypassing.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So there comes a point, like you've done all kinds of other work. Typically, I work with people who've already done work elsewhere. And once you get into the ancestral healing work, and now you know exactly what the medicine is, what your embodiment practices are, you're constantly checking in with your people, you're staying in your practices yourself, whatever those might be, right? I'm bringing you back to the desires of what you said you wanted and what your soul said it's here to do and what your ancestors said you are and that you've agreed to. We just keep coming back to that and being like, where's the incongruency? Because if you go back and say, well, I always did this as a kid, but you're not a kid anymore. And we've brought your inner child with you. We brought your inner teenagers and all the other pieces, because there's more than just the inner child, as y'all know, right? We brought them all on board, which is part of the process. So if you want to continue remembering and pulling back on that wound or on that trauma, then you're participating in your own stuckness, in your own cycle, in your own pattern. But to your point, your original question, Krista, is like, the inherited blessings are gorgeous. They're all kinds of things. Like, I didn't realize, I'm like, yeah, I've always loved poetry. And people always said I had this charm about me when I talk. And, I walk into a room and everyone looks and I'm like, that's right.
Yes. Just me.
That's just me. But I come from a lineage of people who did that, who were writers, who were diplomats, who were like, how do we work together? How do we solve conflict? How do we use our language and our love? And when they showed that to me, and you can also see this in your astrology, if you look at your north and south nodes, it just affirms exactly who you are. And do you want to shed the shit that has happened and you have believed in, you've, aligned with, and that's been passed on to you, to step back into that truth. So the blessings can be talents, it could be attributes, it could be characteristics, it could be everyone in our family is actually very charming. There's a distortion of that, of we joke around when there's things that are very serious. And then there's the empowerment piece, the true essence of it. That's like, no, we really do bring people in and allow healing to happen with jolly and joy, for example, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be nice for the audience to even have a moment with the blessings piece, because I think we're so much on the trauma. I have an issue with money, or I have an issue with men, or I have an issue in relationships. I have issues with my female friendships, whatever it is. But it's like, how can you really sit with like the blessings of your family and really what you've been gifted through your lineage and through your ancestors? So if they were to do that, do you think it would be in meditation or just sort of looking at their life and looking at the things that come naturally and easily? What could they do today?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. Because, we could arguably say, and this is the paradox of it all, one level is looking at your family, and no matter if you perceive something as positive or negative, having gratitude for it
Mhm.
and really taking what you can take out of it. Like, I'm so glad this thing happened because this is what I gain from it, Like, you can be at that quote unquote level that works. That's medicine, that's real. And then yeah, you get into the lineage and you're like, show me exactly what our gifts are. Show me what our magical things are.
Mhm.
Let me activate that in my DNA and in my body. Show me how to use it. That is also another level that I think is really beautiful. So both and like put everything on the table to me is what I think. Yeah.
For the blessings.
Yeah.
Do you have, for those that are just getting into ancestral work, do you have like a daily prayer or ritual to call on your ancestors that they could do today?
Mm.
Or is it as simple as just
Well,
Hi.
we got so deep in this delicious conversation that we never did that. And I always
I
love to
know.
start those with it.
I
So why don't
know.
why don't we do one now?
Okay,
I would
Why don't
love
we
it.
do it together? Because yeah. So wherever you are, you can take some deep breaths and just get in your body. Take a moment to feel the weight of your hips and any other parts of your body that you want to tune into just to bring you into presence. And I always like to start off with just a words of gratitude. I'm so grateful for this day, for this body, for this life, for this opportunity to be alive and breathing this air, walking on this earth, feeling the waters over my body and from my eyes, the heat of the fire in my heart and my chest. Thank you. Thank you, God. Thank you, great ancestors who paved the way. Thank you to my highest self. And thank you to us being ourselves, even be in this collaboration in this moment in time. Those of us physically here in the room, and all of you who are spiritually, energetically in the room with us by listening to this episode. For the remainder of our time, we just honor, call in, and extend the words of appreciation to the greatest ancestors who walk with us, to the angels, to the elemental spirits, to the helpers, and to life force universal energy itself. All these different pieces that contribute to our existence. We bring you into the space. We thank you for your support. We thank you for your wisdom. And we thank you for your co-creational energy that we're all contributing today. May the rest of this interview be incredibly, incredibly serving to this audience. May it be a blessing and an awakening to everyone on your path, whatever that may be. Let it be washed, held very high in purity and integrity. May you feel our hearts. May it be an incredible blessing, an abundant blessing in your life as you walk your path. May you do so with courage and compassion and feel the support of your great ancestors with you, no matter who you are and where you come from or where you're at in your path. Let them clear the way for you to remember and to be proud and to lead with love for your future and for every one of us on this planet. And so it is. Thank you.
So it is.
Thank you.
Got crowded.
Yeah.
I was like,
Too wide, too
yeah,
many.
yes,
I'm
I'm
so
like,
used to it.
literally, I'm
I'm
like,
so
this is crowded room.
Hold on, this side I was like,
This
Yeah.
is so much pressure. I just was thinking too, I'm like, our interviews are so hilarious. We just fucking, whoa.
Yeah,
we
we
are
like go in
fully
there.
with whatever's
Look
present.
at our eyes, though.
I
Like,
know.
beaming,
Isn't that
okay?
weird? It's kind of creepy.
You think so?
No, not
No.
creepy. No, not creepy. It's just like when that happens, it's just whoa, because it's the difference between. You're like, whoa.
It's palpable.
Yes.
It really is.
Yeah.
The density, when you call in and you invoke and you set that intention, I mean, they're ready. They really
Yes.
are ready. So you have to be, it's so long. One, because I'm just long-winded and expressionist like that. But every word matters in the
Yeah, I
invocation.
know.
And so it can be lengthy for that reason. I'm not calling in just anyone, right? But yeah, the density of the air shifts right? Like you feel a difference.
Yes.
We're not here just alone. And I think it's so funny because this is your second time experiencing me invoke. And both times you're like, whew, like that's a lot. Like
As it is, I'm like, whoa, I can feel it's like heavy on my back. I'm like,
heavy
yes.
or like presence?
It's just a lot. I feel like there's rows of beings here.
Yes.
There's rows
Yeah.
of people here.
I think I'm just
to
used
support.
To it.
Yes, you're used to it.
But do you feel that in a supportive way, or do you feel?
And then
like
I feel
crowded in
pressure.
You
And then
feel
I feel like I gotta like perform for them. I'm
I'm like, wait, are you claustrophobic? Like,
Yes.
wait. Everyone, can you please take?
yes, I'm like everyone. I
27
need a
steps
little
back.
steps back, but then they're here, and I'm like, okay, now what do I do with them? It's like when you have guests at your house. You're like, I have guests over. What do I do with the guests?
I'm so glad that you say that though, because part of the practice is learning how to have boundaries with spirit and
Yes.
energy. You know,
Yeah.
and not just normally we talk about that from like a spiritual hygienic way, but that kind of goes back to like the wounds and the trauma piece. But there's actually healthy boundaries, just like healthy boundaries
Yes.
with humans, right? So we can dismiss everyone and just thank them for allowing us to feel the energy of their presence and the intention here, and that's it. And everyone can take a couple steps back, and then that's it, Yeah.
And then you just like, because it's interesting because like my counsel, I'm like very down with and coming, but it's like, and I kind of know their energy, but the ancestor energy just feels so much. Yeah, it's kind of like sorting through it. It's like, okay, what's going on here?
Well, that makes sense
Yeah.
too. Actually, I think about you a lot.
Yeah.
Actually, when I think about folks who are like, man, what the fuck I need to, I don't know if you're saying this, but in my mind, part of me is like, what the fuck I need to rock with ancestors for when I got this whole allegiance
That's what
of like
I
Starseed.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know,
that's
babe.
right.
It's all good.
I know. Yeah, I'm like, you crusty old things. I'm like, get
I
over your
need you.
counsel. Yeah, I'm like, we're going to the moon,
But
baby.
that's what I mean with like kind of the shame around.
Yes.
Because we're kind of like, are they as cool as yours?
Yeah.
No, but they are.
Which is
But
I know.
Not
I know.
100%, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but,
I'm like, you guys are
don't
having
know-
fun.
Right.
And I was thinking about, it's interesting when I was thinking about dancing. I was like thinking about my lineage, if I was looking at a lineage of like English people or white people, whatever, I'm like, our dancing sucks.
But we only
we're like,
have
where does that come from?
yeah,
To,
but it's
like,
only
say
like the
that?
history books back to the 1700s, and I think you're
Yes.
talking about like
Yes. Yes.
Way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, there's like a reptilian in someone's lineage here. And it's not a bad one, but it's like very interesting. I was like, oh, wow. Like, what are you?
But I think that that's the difference. Like every entity, every spirit, whether you're working
Yeah.
with Archangel Michael, Jesus himself,
Yeah.
or Mary Magdalene, or your ancestors, or a specific ancestor, like everyone has a different vibration.
Yes.
And so if you're used to only working with light beings and
Yes.
light and like that kind of energetics, and
Yeah.
then you're like, what the hell? I need to work with this matter. But it all matters.
Yeah.
Like if we're in spirit and we're dealing with the light, we need to bring it into the matter. And our
Yeah.
ancestry is our matter.
Mhm.
Like this is literally the overlap of who am I as a soul, spirit, light being,
yeah.
and the embodiment of what I inherited on this planet. How do we
Mhm.
reconcile that and clean some things up for my best interest, for
Mhm.
the life that I'm called and I desire to lead, and also as an imprint of what will be here after I decide to leave and go to another place and another land and another time.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I think it's also, that's a great point about the boundaries too. It's like remembering that you have sovereignty. So it's like in that moment, like, hey, I need a few steps.
Totally.
I need some space. Like, I love that you're here, but I need a little space. And so it's like, people remembering that too with anything when we're talking about spirituality with, beings or whatever. It's like you have the sovereignty and you have the choice and the ability to be in communication.
I'm
with
so
about
glad
what
you
want.
brought that up, because to be honest with you, it's one of the most challenging things to teach people when they first start doing the work. Because one, they're like, I don't think I can do this. And who the fuck are my ancestors? I've been cussing a lot in this episode.
I
y'all.
love
Like, here
it.
you go.
She's free balling.
Got my tits out too. They're like, I don't know if I can do this. Who am I to do this? I don't even know who the hell my ancestors are. They're probably gonna like all of that stuff. And then when you connect, you're like, oh my God, this is so great. I want everybody around. And you just give your power away. And I'm like, no. This is right relationship. You have power and a perspective. They are not, they are disembodied now. So you have an advantage over them, right? This is a collaborative healing situation that is very beneficial to both. So yeah, there is a sovereignty. This is not, I'll do what my ancestors say, or I am doing their bidding as the embodied. Like it's not.
Because that's not an ancestor.
Or like pedestaling someone.
Yes.
No, they are ancestors. They're just not elevated.
Wow.
They're unhealed. They're crossed
Yeah,
in between.
got it.
So they
Wow.
want to live through you. If they didn't
Yes.
fulfill their life or they have a certain thing or again, coping mechanisms and survival, they're going to try to sometimes put that on you because you're working with the wrong
Mm.
ancestor. So
Wow.
Wow.
yeah, that is they can still be ancestors. Absolutely.
And are
Wow.
there
100%.
certain
Yeah.
ancestors that even though they might not have healed it in that lifetime? I know how do I want to phrase this question? It's like, how can you discern?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can sense the difference, but is that all it is sensing the difference?
Absolutely.
Or just
Mhm.
getting to know them on a level where you're just one is you're gathering data on, your that perspective,
Mhm.
which feels a little like you're projecting onto me, gives me information about where I come from. And that kind of helps me to just
To
Yeah.
discern, that is one way of doing it. I'm not gonna lie, I like to skip over all that shit. I'm like,
Yeah.
listen, what are we here to do? What's the
Yeah.
intention? Hold your boundaries. We're going straight to an elevated ancestor. So I'm not even
Okay.
interested in weaving
Great.
through all of the people and doing all of that.
Yeah.
That's not really what it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of
I
tuning.
love
And
that.
I
You're just like
know.
sitting there. You're like,
yeah, yeah. I'm like, nah. So yeah, we don't really do that. But you can tell immediately
Okay.
when you've connected with an elevated ancestor. And there are prompts
Yeah.
and things that I give to people to kind of guide them to do that. But what I love about the journey is you're attuning yourself to your own lineage and your own spiritual powers, which is activating your spiritual gifts. So when you're not working with me or any other healer who does this, you're not reliant on a person, which this is the reason why I love this modality is, we love our helpers. Don't get me wrong. I love my healers, my coaches, like all the things, my elders, my spiritualists, my advisors, like shout out to y'all. Love you, appreciate it. And we still deserve as our birthright to have a direct connection with our ancestors
Yes.
and our spirit guides ourselves. And so part of this is teaching you to be able to discern through the process. So when we're done,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what it feels like when it's right and when it's not. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And what to
Mhm.
do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so much self-trust in that too, and even this is kind of bringing it back a little bit and I want to bring it back forward, but even in the conversation we're talking about like white women with black women in the space and when black women are kind of going to the topic of race, it's like if you trust yourself and you've done that shadow work, it's so much easier to be in that conversation than if you're like, I don't trust myself. I don't trust myself. What am I
Facts.
going to do?
Yeah.
What am I going to say? And it's the same with the ancestors. Like when you trust yourself, and I really had to learn that myself from the spiritual realm perspective, even from my relationships with the black women in my life. It's like it's everyone trusts you more. Your energetics are there, like you're grounded. It's so much, such a different experience to be with
Yes.
people like that.
I deeply agree. I think that this particular modality requires you to have done work on yourself
Yeah.
already and to have a sense of confidence and trust and to know some things about yourself and about spirituality in general. And some therapy helps,
Yes.
Because when you get into these spaces and you see different things or you understand what's being healed out of the lineage and really for you to embody like the beautifulness of whatever is coming through, you can trust it, you can embody it. And like the conversations to your point in the groups, like you're like, oh, this isn't about me. This is about like, you
Yeah.
won't take it personal.
Yes.
And vice versa. Like the thing is, when you trust yourself, we can all come into community and have these conversations. All three of us trust ourselves. We have built a relationship to trust each other casually, right? And we can come and do this little shindig that we're doing so very well, right? So, yeah, if you don't trust yourself, you'll be like, I want to tiptoe, and
Yeah.
I don't want to offend. But when you're
Yes.
doing that, you're then editing yourself, and you're
Yes.
cutting off the opportunity for yourself and for others. So, and the truth is, when you trust yourself, to your point, you show up a certain way. And even if you say something quote unquote wrong or offensive, we can feel your heart.
Yes.
Everyone can feel
Yeah.
heart. Like everyone. I have a colleague who does ancestral healing as well. And she is deaf. So she does sign language, American Sign
Wow.
Language. And I don't know American Sign Language
Wow.
class. I love you. Like, right? But once she closed out in group settings, she closed out an invocation and a prayer with sign language. And I kid you not, there was not a dry eye in that room. And none of us speak sign language. And the motion and like I knew exactly what she was saying because her heart was there, you know? So I use that as an example that's like, we don't need to be saying stuff perfectly. It's not for that. It's to show up real and wanting our best selves to be in this world, right? And the imprint, the legacies that we'll leave accordingly thereafter because
Yes.
we were all brave and we answered our calls. Yeah, that I feel that.
Yeah, I've been recently in my prayers, I've been like Because I try, like when I pray, I'm trying to be so perfect with my words, because you got to be careful when you pray. You're like, I might get it. And so I'm like, just been like, oh God, just hear my heart. Just hear
Mhm.
my heart.
Yeah.
Just hear and feel my heart and
Best prayer ever.
like allow
Yeah.
that to be all that we need,
Mhm.
Yeah. I pray for my heart all the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I should probably use my mouth and let the vibration of my words also go through the
Yeah.
airways. But I'm like,
No, that heart.
my
I
heart and my
know.
channel, my psychic channel, like God,
Yeah.
you're right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I feel like there was a time in my work where I didn't talk about God as much, where it was all about the
Yeah.
ancestors. But the truth is, the work that I do has always been all, right? It's just that I see a missing area
Mhm.
of this healing and development work is no one wants to look at their ancestry.
Mhm.
Everyone's afraid of it, but it's so healing. It's so beautiful.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, God at the top always. The angels, the elemental spirits, which is earth, air, fire, water, ether. Yes, and the ancestors and all the others, the angels, all of it. So I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah.
I was just feeling into like how much the heart was used to communicate like eons and eons ago. Where there was where there's just this coherence happening with very little form of verbal communication or even written or however anyone communicated in that tangible way. And just how like so many things we didn't lose it. We just forgot the power of it.
Yeah. All in our heads.
Yeah.
Right.
I know.
In Law of One, it talks about fourth density is all heart. It's like the density of the heart. And then fifth density is actually a balance of the heart and the mind. So it's like interesting because I've always thought that too. I'm like, oh, the goal is to always be in the heart, but it's actually to have a balance of both the heart and the mind. And in sixth density, that's when like there's the perfect unison of both where you're able to support back, people in that ascension process. But it is, I mean, to be in the heart is powerful.
It is. And I think I know that we are swinging the pendulum, I call it the pendulum effect. If we were all in the heart at some point, and then we've moved all the way to the mind as a society, we're going to swing all the way to the heart. And now we're going to come to a middle, right? And we see that with, quote unquote, patriarchal led, which I have some thoughts about that.
Yeah.
Society,
That's for dinner.
right? Society. And then moving into this quote unquote feminine movement. And eventually we're going to get into a middle, into a balance.
Yes.
And going back to the different ancestral healing modalities, there are people who are not saying that they're doing ancestral healing, but that you're doing ancestral work. If that is what you're experiencing, just call in your elevated ancestors while you do it. If you know that you're doing some you can feel when it's ancestral. I've been in pussy groups and women this groups and money groups and all these different groups and offerings, and they'll be like, this is ancestral. The moment when you realize something is deeper and bigger than you, just from your heart, call in your elevated ancestors so they can do the work in the spirit realm as you do what you're doing physically. You don't have to do it the way that I'm doing it. But I just say that I do truly believe in my heart, we all need this. So when you talk about this 3D, 4D, and 5D, at the end of the day, when you come to 5D, this is about balance and restoring balance in this planet and in our lives. And we can do that many different ways, but we need it so desperately.
Yeah. Excited to do it together.
I know.
Yeah.
How just as a last question, just a guide for people how they can connect with you or, work with you, because I feel like your work has evolved.
Oh yeah.
Since we spoke.
Totally has.
And what does that look like today?
Man, we did cover it all. Y'all are amazing.
Yes,
My
bitch.
goodness. Experts.
I love that you checked your notes.
Right?
You're like,
2
checks
hours
notes.
later.
Yeah, literally. And you like add the parts we talked about. You're like, race and white
Also.
women. Yeah, literally.
I love it. Like only here.
I
Like
know.
only here.
I know.
Thank you.
In this
Like, it's
piece of
just so
shit.
good.
I'm just kidding.
It's so good. It's so good.
We
And
love you.
seriously, shout out to all of the listeners. Like we need these conversations. I don't care what color you are, y'all. Like love is love. We're doing this. And we get to work through those details and like those conversations and the experiences so we can come back and actually evolve it further. So yeah, shout out to that. So yeah, the work is evolving. It's still ancestral healing. It is, but the expression of it is a little bit different. It is heart centered. It is healing women and our divine femininity, like truly, in all these different aspects, and bringing your ancestors along in the journey. Right? It is about the blessings and the embodiment and the beauty that you want to be living in your life as a result. I think before I spoke a lot to your point around, the wounds and what needs to be cleared and the heaviness. And that was needed. Like, I'm not going to lie, that work is needed. And I get the most joy when we work through that. And then I see you beaming and more of who you are and you're able to walk in that in your day to day without any doubts, or at least way less than you had before we got to cross paths. So I'm back on Instagram.
Yes.
Right. So you can check me out at Ash Inspires there. So if you're feeling the vibes here, then you definitely I love how I put my news anchor voice back on. So ladies, if you'd like to journey with me in this, I'm not in it now, but by the time you hear this, I'll be in my book writing tour.
Yay.
And so if you want to come along on that journey of understanding how to break generational patterns and working with your ancestors, and honestly, a reflection of my own life from 8 years old all the way to now 35 is going into this book, as well as anecdotes from my clients and some of the huge things that they have healed from and what their lives have turned into as, after. So that's all going into the book. You can join me there if you want.
I can't wait. I'm so proud of you.
Did I tell you the name of the book?
No.
Paths to Freedom.
Wow. I love that. Wow. Trademark it.
I know, right? It already is. How to identify and heal every generational pattern that's holding you back from freedom, love, and belonging.
Wow.
Ooh.
Powerful. Tagline number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
So good.
Okay, guys.
Proud
We'll
of
see you
you.
soon.
Thank
Love you.
you.
Bye.
Lots of love.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ash. It was such a pleasure to be with you. I really, really enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in.
You can learn more about Ash and her work at ashleyjohns.com. And thank you to our sponsors for this episode. As always, just bringing you brands that we're obsessed with and we love. And you can find all discounts in the show notes and on almost30.com. We love y'all.
We love y'all. We'll see you on TikTok, Almost 30 Podcast. We'll see you on Instagram, Almost 30 Podcast, almost30.com. And you can find me on Instagram at It's Krista.
And I'm at Lindsay Simsick. See you soon.
See you soon.